Okay, welcome back to Hollywood Balls with me, Geordie Pete Redding. We're on a bit of a Spurs special this weekend, which is great. So it allows me as well, before I introduce my next guest, really excited about this one, is to say a big hello to Rod and all the Spurs boys. They're the UAE official Spurs supporters club. They watch all of their matches at Double Decker. So if you're a Spurs fan in Dubai or indeed Abu Dhabi, get yourself down there, tell Rod I sent you, and enjoy this next one, because my next guest famously rep Pompey, Spurs, Birmingham Wolves, Bournemouth. He also starred for the Three Lions in Euro 96. What a time to be alive. Welcome to Hollywood Balls, Darren Anderton.
Hi Pete, how you doing?
We're very well, thanks. And how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Just in and out of lockdown in London, and same, spend a lot of time in California where my wife is from. So yeah, that's a little bit, I think it seems like you guys are doing things a little bit better than us over here. So hopefully we can get out there at some point.
We'd love to see you, and I know the Spurs boys would as well. So what have you been up to currently? I mean, we asked that question at the start of the show. It is a bit of a different year, so a lot of people are having to deal with that. But are you managing to keep yourself busy?
Yeah, busy enough. I mean, we ended up, I said, my wife's from California, so we're out there most of the time. In March, we decided to go to Spain, and just go to the house out there and have a bit of time, a couple of weeks holiday, and then it all started. So we actually decided that where we were was a little bit isolated, out the way, and we ended up staying there for 4 months and doing everything there. Then London for a couple of months, and then back to California. But back in London now, so and we're going back over to America for Christmas. I'm doing a bit of media work. I've always been interested in doing property type stuff, so I've got a few rentals of that go on, ambassador type stuff for Spurs, and I've actually got a children's nursery and preschool down in Bournemouth, which was a property that I had, and friends came to me and asked about joining with that with one of the properties. So there's enough going on, and a lot more of this sort of thing with meetings and everything in Zoom now. Exactly,
yeah, and it's great for us and great for our viewers. I mean, we just speaking off air about the whole concept of Hollywood Balls, and to give our fans an insight into what it was like when our heroes were playing. So we're going to take you back down memory lane. I want to start with Alan Ball. He signed you as an apprentice at Pompey. But you were born in nearby Southampton. Was there never an opportunity with them?
Not really. And as a Southampton fan growing up, I mean, as a kid, you just want to be a professional footballer, and of course, you always want to play for your local team. So I played for the city of Southampton, which was obviously the district and the area, and I was the youth development officer at the time. Would come and watch us play every week, and there was 4 or 5 of the lads were at the academy. My dad, who I would say most certainly wasn't a footballer, and his knowledge of the game was okay, just thought that I was on a level par with those sort of kids in those days. So he actually, the nearest team was Portsmouth, so he just gave them a call. They came and watched, and the rest is history. Worked out okay.
It did indeed, didn't it? Just speaking of Portsmouth, I've got to ask you, because obviously there's a link with my club, Newcastle. Jim Smith, what was it like playing under the Bald Eagle? He was proper old school, wasn't he?
Proper old school, and I guess that was the only way back then. But it was, I loved playing for Jim. I mean, what a man. I mean, just someone who obviously I knew about and who'd been a manager at the highest level. At Portsmouth, as a kid coming through, I'd played a few games the year before, and then Jim Smith came in. Of course, we'd heard the rumours, but he was just true to his word. I mean, first day of pre-season, you're all playing off a level playing field, and that was it. His words were, "Get out there and do your pre-season and try and get in my team." And on the first day of the season, there was 4 or 5 of us that were youngsters and hadn't played consistently before at any point, and it went from there. And that season, of course, ended up with a great FA Cup run, and a season I still look back on with fondest memories, and just playing for Jim and being going away to hotels and things like that, and he's just a real character.
Speaking of characters, Portsmouth came out to Dubai back in the day, and I took them all to the races. Chief in charge that day was David James, who was in goal at the time, and there were some great characters in that side, and they had a wonderful training camp here in Dubai. Now, one of the characters that I met when I came across, and I wanted to know if you've come across him, I think he's a bit of a legend in Pompey, was the kit man, Big Kev. Is that right?
Yeah, Big Kev. Not there in my time.
No.
There are other kit men there then, but I played for the old boys of Portsmouth, the legends as such, on numerous occasions, and he actually does that as well. So he's just a real character, just a real love for Portsmouth. Do anything for you. Just a gentle giant, really. Yeah, as I say, he's a Pompey legend. Love him.
Literally a dream come true for him, wasn't it? Because
Yes.
when he was out in Dubai, it smacked of was just a massive Portsmouth fan in size, in nature, in the way he treated life, and it was just his dream job. And just everywhere he went, he was just happy. It was just like it was a real fill up.
Yeah, I think he typifies Portsmouth fans, just the way that they are. They just love their football team. They're very proud of Portsmouth itself, and for what the way that people treat me, just from I left there at 20, but people still remember, and still that team that I was involved in, and as I say, the team that came out to Dubai, that obviously had great success and winning the FA Cup. Portsmouth fans remember, and they're proper football fans. They really do know the game. So I was very, very lucky to start my career there and have the upbringing that I had in the game that I took with me wherever I went in my career.
It's a special place, Fratton Park. I've been a couple of times as a Newcastle fan, and I think the latter time was a 1-1 draw, and one of our own Geordie, Steve Stone, scored for Pompey, and Kieran Dyer was playing for Newcastle. But it was the tightly packed ground, the atmosphere, and of course that bell that rang out. You couldn't go away from it.
It's a great place, and it would be windy, it could be wind gusting down there, everything, but that the atmosphere, and there was always good. Thierry Henry, obviously a world-class player, he always mentioned that was the place that he thought, wow, this is what British football is, English football is all about. And Arsenal were an unbelievable team at that time. So they've certainly earned it. And even now, with times being a little bit more difficult, they still get the crowds in there. In League One, League Two, they fill the place, and they really get behind their team. It's a team at the moment that last couple of years it hasn't played probably the best style of football, but they're there every week, and they get behind the team. They
do. And before we move on, just a big shout out to a pub that I visited there, the Shepherd's Crook. I think I won the meat draw that day as well before the game. So very, very happy memories of Fratton Park. You were probably best known for your time at Spurs as well. I've got to ask you, what was it like playing in the same side as Teddy Sheringham?
Oh, I played with Gazza, of course, with his Geordie links and everything, and he's probably the best player I played with. But Teddy isn't far behind. A incredible footballer, great lad. His intelligence of the game was incredible. When I first went there, he came about a month later, so we hit it off, which was great. But he started up top, I would say. Nicky Barmby used to play in the hole, and it wasn't, obviously as the years progressed, Teddy would then, his knowledge of the game meant mid-game he could go into these areas that to affect the game, and he always did it. But at the same time, he would then be in the box scoring goals as well. And I think that a lot of people talk about Harry Kane at the moment and the way that he's playing, and I think there are a lot of similarities from the way that Teddy, when I first went there, progressed as a player as well, that we're now seeing with Harry Kane. But what a player, what a team player. A leader, an upbringing at Millwall that was tough as hell, and of course, we all know obviously he wasn't the quickest in the world, and he was 5 yards quicker than everyone else in his head. Went on and had a very long career, but for me as a player to know that if I did my job and got past the fullback and whipped the ball in, that's what he wanted. A different class. So many players looked better players through playing with him, that's for sure.
We were just chatting before you came on the show with Micky Hazard, another great Spurs legend as well, and he was talking about the magic of the cup, and it's something I wanted to touch on with you because you've got a close affinity because of your performances in the cup. I mean, you mentioned it at the top of the interview with Pompey. Does the '98 the final, the Wembley final, does that stand out as a career highlight for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I had so many frustrated times but great times within the FA Cup, in that I love those FA Cup runs. I loved watching it as a kid and everything else. So 5 semi-finals I lost, not good, including one against Newcastle, which probably one that I feel like we went into believing that we should win. Wasn't to be. So to finally get to a final at Wembley in '99, and we played Leicester, and the game was dreadful, everything about it. But to score the winner, George Graham was our manager, a winner himself, knew what it was all about to win trophies. So it was great that it finally had happened. I played at Wembley, of course, for England. I mean, part of Euro '96 and everything. So Wembley is just magical. And to go there with Tottenham, with our home fans, it was a really special day and a great night as well.
I'll come on to Euro '96 in a bit, but before we did, I wanted to talk about Terry Venables. We've had so many guests on this show that have, throughout their careers, been involved somewhere along the line with Terry, either coaching or managing them or giving them advice. And it just comes across to myself and all the listeners that no one can sing his praises high enough. What is it that makes him such an outstanding coach and manager?
I just think he's just the best in everything. I think as a human being, he's just, when I first went there, I really struggled. He became almost like a father figure to me, looked after me, and I was really, really struggling. Then on the training pitch, did everything that you needed to do. So there was a bit of shape, a bit of finishing. He put things across to players so they were easy to take on board. So you knew when you went out on the pitch, you knew what your job was. It made it, he simplified things, and of course he knew a good player. People forget about that, and that also, like Euro '96, the balance of a squad, balance of a team. He wanted, he turned the Euro '96 team basically from an international team into a club team, the team that all lads got on great. Yes, there's a social aspect to that we all enjoyed, and we got vilified for out in Hong Kong and things like that. But it all goes to building a team spirit, and Terry was always there for the players. And I was very fortunate, that he brought me to Tottenham as a young lad for a very big fee in those days, and then of course to give me my England debut and for me to be part of something very special at Euro '96.
Arguably the greatest time of my life, Euro '96. As I said at the start of the show, what a time to be alive. Just come back from Ibiza, ready to carry the summer on with you and the boys. It was just one long summer. I've got to ask you though, there's so many memories of that. As a fan, I know that sometimes I've watched a game as a fan and I see a chance that a player should have scored and I agonise about it, never mind the player. Do you still play that out in your head, that agonising hitting of the post?
Not often, but like in the summer through lockdown, all the games were being replayed, so I watched that. Didn't watch the penalties, but it was very emotional rewatching it, I have to say. And most certainly people talk about it, and so it does come up, and I always think to myself, what if? And the only thing is that I never beat myself up over it, to be honest, because it was one of those opportunities that it wasn't a one-on-one where I had a decision to make. Do I go round the keeper, knock it left, knock it right? Should have done something different. It was just one of those things. I was obviously in the box, ball came to me, I fall in one way, got a connection on it to steer it towards what I thought was goal, and I didn't even see it hit the post. Because I was falling in the opposite direction. Presumed that when I got a good connection on it, it was going in. But as I look back and the ball hit the post, then was ricocheting into the goalie's hands. Oh my Lord, what's happened there? But of course, it would have taken us through to the final. Would have been the first ever golden goal. If we got to the final, I mean, you'd have to think that we'd had an unbelievable chance of winning it and been, of course, heroes for forever. So people still talk about it now as being an unbelievable time and an unbelievable team. Very fortunate to be part of it. But of course, if that would have gone in, it would have been a little bit better.
And had it been the day before or the day after, who knows? It probably would have gone in. And like you say, it wasn't one of those things where, it was a snapshot. It was a great piece of skill. And England, being English aside, it did deserve a goal. So never mind. There was many fantastic heroes throughout that tournament, as you've just highlighted there. I've got to ask you though. We ask all the guests that have been influenced by our Dunstan legend, somewhere I'm from as well myself. Have you got a favourite Gaza story for us that's clean?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great stories of Gaza, but I think the one I like the most myself is one which just shows actually what he was like as a lad, as a, not being the nutcase that we all know he is, but how genuine he is and what a team guy he was. But so for my debut, we played Denmark. It was Terry Venables' first game. I'd so many thoughts going through your mind. Are you good enough? Oh God, I want to do well. The stories of playing for England and the press batter you and everything else. God, I want to do so well. So we, trained in the morning. Terry told us the team, go back to your rooms after lunch, have a sleep, and then you get the knock around 4 o'clock type thing, bit of tea and toast and pre-match. So that sort of time, I knock on my door and it was Gaza. Oh no, what's he gonna do? But he came in. He said, and he asked me if I had a shaver, and I was like, can't remember if I did. I didn't even know if I was shaving those days. I was still so young. But he then just came into the room. And he's like, just want you to know, you belong to. You deserve to be here. You belong here. Terry bought you. Terry bought me. You're going to be unbelievable. You're going to be here for years to come. He said, I just want you to go out and enjoy it. He said, my debut, I said, I can't really remember it. It just passed me by. He said, you've got to take it all in. It's the best feeling ever. And you deserve to be here. And he didn't have to do that. No one else did that. And no one needs to do that. But he just is that sort of person. And I will always be so appreciative that he did that, because I watched World Cup 90, he's my hero. To have that from your hero come up and do that for you. And I went on and we won the game 1-0, and arguably one of the best games I've ever had in my life. And I owe that to Gaza. There's no doubt about it. I felt great playing in that game, and for me, that just sums up what he's like. And people don't hear about those stories quite so much.
Exactly. Now, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Got to ask you again, do you think you wish a lot was made of it that you'd signed for Man United? Don't forget, you're in good company, because one Alan Shearer said no as well. He came home to Newcastle.
Yeah, I think it's something that I don't regret at all, because at the time it was the right decision for me in every sense. I feel like I'm a very loyal person. Tottenham were unbelievable to me. I struggled, as I said earlier, when I first went there. Fans never got on my back once. Terry Venables was incredible to me. So when the opportunity came in '95, I was buzzing. I was so happy at Tottenham. It was an incredible team to be part of. Following year was Euro '96. I was desperate to play in that as well. I didn't want to change anything. United had just got rid of Ince, Kanchelskis and Mark Hughes. So it was the summer of Alan Hansen saying, the kid win nothing with kids. So myself, like everyone else, didn't really know what was coming through. So at that time, the right decision, 100% for me. But in hindsight, like you say, of course, I would like to have played in the Champions League final and won that and won Premier League titles. Right at that point is when I started to have problems with injuries. If I'd gone there, I'd have had proper medical treatment, I would have thought, and that would have been the biggest thing for me. Yeah. So in hindsight, yes, if I had gone there, I think things would have turned out very, very much differently, and there'd be many more medals on the side. But at the time, as a 23-year-old, it was 100% the right thing to do, and I still believe that.
Yeah, I do too. If things,
yes,
I believe that things happen for a reason. Okay, welcome to another edition of Hollywood Balls with me, Geordie Pete Redding. Really looking forward to today's show. Couple of legends on. Before I go any further, though, because he'll kill me if I don't, big thank you to Lee Cosgrove, who's helped get our next guest on the show today. So, Lee, you're a top red and a top bloke, and that comes from both myself and my next guest. Speaking of which, my next guest, he's one of the finest midfielders that I've actually had the pleasure of watching live. Spurs, Chelsea, Pompey, Swindon, the one and only Micky Hazard. Welcome to Hollywood Balls, Micky.
I'm pleased to be here. My pleasure.
It's been a hell of a year for many. We were just talking slightly off camera there. So tell us, what have you been up to currently before we get down to delve down memory lane?
Well, it's been a very strange year, as you rightly say. I mean, if anybody had ever told me at the start of the year that this was going to be 2020, I would have said, no way. It's just not possible in modern day society. With the advancements in technology and science that we've had, and that we can be sort of killed by a virus. But during that, obviously, it does create opportunities for people to be more caring, more giving, to help others. Because I always say that, the world's a better place when we're all helping one another. And I think that what this virus has did is it's brought people closer together. It's enabled them to maybe focus on things that maybe they've sort of took for granted in the past. Families, visiting friends, looking after elderly, looking after the sick. All of these things is become more prominent as a consequence of the virus, which is a great thing. So when people say this has been an horrendous year, I tend to disagree. I think that, of course, it's been a worrying year and all of those things, but ultimately it's brought people back to reality, back to seeing the things that really matter in life. But also, every morning we wake up, we're breathing. It's a special moment in our lives. We've survived the virus, and so I think it's been an absolutely amazing year. What have I been doing? I've sort of struggled along. Obviously, all my work is event-based, so the events industry has been severely hampered and damaged, and I've not had one piece of work throughout the whole year. I've attempted to set up other businesses, but again, the sort of event related, and when people say that you need to diversify, spread your risk, then I'm a sort of victim of not doing that, because everything that I've been involved in, I've got a wedding and party business, which we had 60 bookings for. We had to, not only did we get them all cancelled, we had to refund all the deposits. Obviously my own dinners and Q&As, things like that, working at Spurs, all of these things came to an abrupt halt. But I've set up another company with Graham Roberts called Spursograms, where we deliver shirts to people's front doors. We deliver messages with a signed shirt, and Zoom meetings with a signed shirt. And again, and no sooner have we set it up than they sort of, because part of the magic of it was once in a lifetime that your hero would turn up on your doorstep, sign your shirt for you, come in, have a cup of tea and a drink with you, or a sandwich, sit chatting. And it's like surreal, really, to be sitting. I mean, my dad had sort of bought me that when I was a kid, and brought Glenn Hoddle or Johan Cruyff to my front door. A dream. So we set with that, and then suddenly they introduced Tier 3, which makes it so much more difficult to do that. Obviously, this is something that will keep running, but it's Tier 3's made it difficult. But hey, there's so many good things happened as a consequence of the virus, that they outweigh the bad. So I tend to see the positive side of it, that it's been a great year. It's been a great year for bringing everybody back together.
I'd echo that as well, definitely. So Hollywood Balls listeners, get yourself that cup of tea and a sandwich, because I'm about to quiz Micky and we are going to go down memory lane. Born in Sunderland, not too far away from me down the road, but spotted by Spurs at a young age. I've got to ask you, another amazing talent escaping from the Northeast.
Yeah, I think I can only talk about my day. I don't know what the scouting network is like now, but in my day, the problem was that hometown boys were generally regarded as, oh well, they come to Sunderland, they sign for Sunderland or Newcastle, they'll sign for their local team because they don't want to move away, etc., etc. So consequently, they sort of got took for granted a little bit, and the vast amounts of, Sunderland tried to sign me and Newcastle, blah, blah, vast amounts of local talent that were being taken into professional football clubs in vast numbers, so it didn't allow room for any individual attention. Whereas when you went away from your hometown to a place like London, to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, because they'd invested so much time and effort and money into you, i.e. pay your train fare, pay your parents to come down, put you in hotels, etc., then you got a lot more individual attention, and they were more likely to give you the time you needed to make it because of their investment. Whereas a local lad, you would be down to your local club, you'd do a little hour and a half training session and go home, and that would be it. There'd be no sort of big time investment in you. So therefore there wasn't a responsibility to give you the time to grow and develop like there was at Tottenham. And obviously my dad weighed all of that up and made the decision. And plus Spurs have put an incredible amount of effort. The scout watched me every single week for 3 years. He came around my house, dinner, invited us around his house for dinner. So the time and effort they put in was unbelievable, where Sunderland just rang up, and it wasn't until the last moment when I was about to sign for Spurs did they start really making a big effort. So too late then.
It's funny you say that, Micky. We were chatting with Kenny Hibbert last week, and something that I've learned. I try to class myself as knowing a little bit about football, but what I was amazed was the behind the scenes of the scouting. And Kenny Hibbert said that exactly the same as you. When it came to football, the scout looked at him for 2 years. So there's a lot of work goes in that, and of course it's how they make you feel. If you're feeling wanted, then hey, all the better, right?
100%. I mean. You know what? Listen, it's not very easy leaving your hometown and going 300 miles away to a place you've never ever been before, and know little about. And obviously, coming from a place like Sunderland, as you well know, the northeast is a warm and friendly place. You get off the train, you're carrying 2 cases. Some guy will say, "Do you need a hand with your case?" And he'll help you carry your case. You come to London and you go hello, and nobody even acknowledges you. Once you get to know them, the brilliant people, but getting to know them is very difficult at first. And as a young kid coming down here for the first time, it was incredibly tough. So it's not easy to leave home, but the club, they have an opportunity when they have youngsters who've come from so far away to really show you that they care, to really show you that they want you, and that's the key, I think, in the long run, is that when a club first of all invest the time and effort and the money into you as a schoolboy, when you turn 16 and maybe you're homesick, as I was, they still invest time, effort and money into you, and they create situations like they did with me, where they said, look, we know you're homesick, we want you to stay at Spurs, we think you've got a fantastic chance of making it, so what we're prepared to do is we will let you go home to Sunderland every 10th year for 5 days. So you come down here, you play 2 youth team games or reserve games, you stay here for 10 days, and then you go home for 5 days. We will pay your fare home, we'll pay your taxis, your train fares, food on the train, we will give you money for your parents to pay for your upkeep while you're there. It sort of leaves a good taste. You think, wow, they really, really want me, because they wouldn't put so much effort into me and so much investment if they didn't want me. And I think that's the key to I mean, Sunderland wanted me, but I never got the feeling they wanted me.
Right.
And nor did my parents. So Spurs proved by actions in which they wanted me, and they got me. And even after getting me, they were still prepared to go the extra mile to make sure that I settled, and to make sure that they gave me every opportunity to make it. And ultimately, as a player, it makes you feel like this is where I want to be.
And boy, did they get a player. I'm going to take you back to my schoolyard now. I used to get shouted at, "Took your shirt in, Reading." And I always remember Mr. Dobson was my headmaster, and I used to shout, "Micky Hazard doesn't." And he shouted back, "You're not Micky Hazard." Not by a long shot, was I? But out of all the attributes that you possessed as a player, in your mind, what was your strongest?
If I had to pick my strongest point, it was my belief in how the game should be played. Of course, I was very naturally talented. People would always refer to, I was two-footed naturally. People would refer to my talent as being my biggest asset.
Yep.
I don't believe it was. I believe that my belief in how the game should be played, and I always believed that the game should be played beautifully, the beautiful passing and flowing and skillful and flair, creativity, all of those things. I believe so strongly in them that I would even jeopardize my own place in a team if I felt that we weren't adhering to what I believe the way the game should be played. When I look through history and I look at the most successful teams in history, the Dutch team with Johan Cruyff and that beautiful footballing flowing team, Brazil of 70, Brazil of 82, Barcelona, the greatest club side I've ever seen. And you go through history and you look at the most successful teams, they've all played this beautiful, wonderful, flowing, creative flair game. So it was something that I was brought up on. My dad used to talk to me about Len Shackleton and how great he was, and always talked about the beautiful game to me. So it became my belief, and it's something that I believed in really, really strongly. I like to think that now that I finished my career, that everybody who watched me play would say that I played the beautiful game. I played it with flair. That doesn't mean I didn't have bad games. Of course I did. Creativity is defined in the dictionary is not something that can be created at will, because there's always someone else trying to stop you to being creative. But I always attempted to do the things in the game that I enjoyed doing, that the fans enjoyed seeing. Otherwise, why do they sing my name? They enjoyed seeing people dribble past people. They enjoyed seeing great passes, through passes, top class goals. And that's what I believe the game should be played in. And all my favourite players, and not just in football, but in every walk of life, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Jimmy White, Alex Higgins, my favourite snooker players, John McEnroe, all flair. Every sport that I support, I always went for the most creative, the one who played with the most flair.
It's entertainment business at the end of the day, and I think a lot of people do forget that. We'll move swiftly on from playing the beautiful game because it's not taking place at St James's Park at the moment. One place it did take place though is the FA Cup final. It was my first as a young football fan, Micky, and it was quite an epic battle with QPR. What were your memories from that?
Well, the memories, great memories. The memories were that season we played 65 games. And what you have to remember is that we didn't have the squads of today's teams. We didn't have the pitches of today's teams, and we didn't have the rotational system because we didn't have the squad. So basically, Steve Perryman, for instance, who was captain, played all 65 games. That's a lot of games in one season. We should have won the league that year. We reached the League Cup final. We're 1-0 up with 2 minutes to go, and lost after extra time to the best team in Europe at that time, Liverpool. Should have won that. I genuinely believe that if we'd have gone and won that, we would have won all four. But by losing that and extra time, it sort of put more pressure on than was required. Then the backlog of fixtures caught up with us, and we started to get fatigued. And of course, we got to the FA Cup final, lost to Barcelona in the semi-final of the Cup Winners' Cup over 2 legs. Should have won. They kicked us off the park. But for the FA Cup final was an amazing memory. One, because it's the fulfillment of a schoolboy dream. As youngsters, FA Cup in our day was just ginormous. It was the only live game on TV. We used to watch it from 9 o'clock in the morning all the way through to 10 o'clock at night. It was just amazing. And so having dreamt about it and played in 1,000 FA Cup finals in my mind as a schoolboy playing down the park, imagining that I was scoring the winning goal, and here I was in an FA Cup final. And then to see my family, my brothers, my sisters, my dad, my mum, everybody present at the game, and them looking down at me, and And it's every parent's dream to see their child fulfill their dreams. But it's also every child's dream to see their parents fulfill their dreams for their children. And on this occasion, I was lucky enough to do both, fulfill my dream, fulfill my parents' dream for me, and to sort of walk out at Wembley Stadium knowing that your parents were sitting watching you with nothing but pride. That was a wonderful feeling. The game itself was a bit of a blur.
Yeah.
I thought we played really well in the first game, should have won comfortably. Their keeper, Peter Hook, had a very good day. And they got I think Terry Fenwick scored the equaliser, who I played with for Durham County Boys. I thought we were very unlucky. And then the sort of final game of the season was a game too many. We didn't play well. We nicked the 1-0 win. We were a bit fatigued, didn't really have the legs to have the zip, because we were a brilliant side and so many creative flair players. But we didn't play well, but won the game. So, of course, when you're celebrating afterwards, any victory is often clouded. It clouds your judgment. I'd like to think it hasn't clouded mine, because I don't think we played well in that game. If we'd won in the first game, I would have said, it was the greatest performance that ever lived, because winning, and when you win a major trophy, what you've won it, the excitement, the joy, the celebrations, they allow you to believe that it was a great game. But the second game wasn't a great game. But unbelievable memories.
Fantastic. And again, for us, the whole point of Hollywood Balls is to tap into these memories for fans like myself who could only sit at home and dream. So it's fantastic to hear. Something else of a major achievement, European nights back in the day, like the FA Cup, they always seem to bring an epic atmosphere with them. And looking at that one, I remember again myself watching, and what was nice then was it didn't matter who your team was. If there was a team playing from England in a major final, everyone was behind them. It was quite that night against Anderlecht, wasn't it?
Listen, I totally agree with you. Your assessment of European nights is absolutely spot on. They were wonderful. I've got to say the atmosphere was totally different. It was played under lights. We played in all white kit. It was just magical. I remember driving to games. It didn't matter what European night it was. As I was driving to games, I was filled with excitement. Sometimes the league games could be a bit mundane. You were playing Stoke City away. It was like, oh no. But, there weren't these glorious nights filled with this air of anticipation, and so European nights were just amazing. And I was very fortunate in the semi-final to get the goal that took us to the finals. I scored the winner in the semi-final. It took us to the final against Anderlecht, and over 2 legs. When we went away to Anderlecht, we were absolutely played superb on the night. We should have won 3-0. They got a last-minute or a mistake in the last few minutes from Tony Parks to equalise. How ironic that Tony Parks in the end saved the final penalty to win us it. I thought it was an amazing. I can't tell you. Obviously, before Euro nights, we stayed overnight in a hotel local to Spurs, not far away, and then about 4 o'clock we'd set off for the stadium. And on a normal match day, you just drive into the stadium and you park up and it's hunky-dory, trying to get from the traffic lights at White Hart Lane down to the stadium at Tottenham High Road, which was about 400 yards. It took about an hour to get there. It was absolutely gridlocked with people. It was like nothing I'd ever seen. So you can imagine me, I'm sitting in my car, driving to the stadium, I'm driving down the High Road. The excitement in my mind as I was driving. And I used to get excited to see some people used to like playing in front of 10 people.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't get going if there was only 10 people there. I used to hate it. Oh, no, I can't get motivated. Put me at 100,000 there and I'm on cloud 9. Now, I was quite shy as well as a youngster. So walking out onto the pitch in front of 100,000, but it brought me to life. I came alive. Didn't have to motivate myself because I was motivated, because I knew this 100,000, if this was my day, this 100,000 was going to see some magic.
Yeah.
I look back and then we get into the stadium and the buzz, it's hard to explain to people who weren't involved. But walking in, you park your car and you get out your car, and everybody wants to say hello, how are you? Good look at security men, doormen, you name it. Everybody, all the just nothing but well wishes. You are, you're on cloud nine because there's so many people, so much. And again, it's touching back to coronavirus in many ways. These occasions, European nights, big occasions, they make so many people, not just Spurs fans, but as you rightly say, in those days, that it was if you're an English team and everybody supported you. So many people were well wishers, you know, and it brought everything together. It was so beautiful, and of course the game itself. It was Keith Birkinshaw's last game. He'd resigned over a dispute with Irving Scholar, which was a sad day for us. So the evening was always going to be tinged with sadness, but great joy too. One, because we'd won it for Keith, and two, because we won it. But the game didn't strictly go according to plan. It was a great game, two very, very good teams. I always felt we were a better team, and I always felt that we had what it takes, but we'd lost Glenn Hoddle, injured for both legs. Steve Perryman lost for the second leg. No Ozzy Ardiles, no Garth Crooks, no Ray Clements. I mean, 5 players that were regulars in the starting 11 out of the game. So it became almost like a youth team game, in that lots of the players that played on the day had come through the youth setup at Spurs. So very much homegrown. We didn't have many outside of who, I mean, if you go through it, Tony Park's homegrown. We signed on Chris Hughton, homegrown. Paul Miller, homegrown. Graham Roberts, sort of homegrown because he was signed from non-league. Tony Galvin, homegrown. Ali Dick, homegrown. Myself, homegrown. Mark Falco, homegrown. Mark Bowen. We had sort of 12 players from in that squad of 16 that were homegrown, which is a phenomenal achievement. So,
and great names as well. Amazing.
Absolutely. But it also helped. I think that when you lose 5 players of the quality that we left, I think the fact that we'd all come through the youth setup, we all knew what it meant to play for this football club, and we all had sort of grown up together. So there was a togetherness that we knew that we can win this game, because as a reserve team with all the same players, we won the combination 3 years running. You know, so there was a belief that we could win it. I never had not one doubt. Even when we were 1-0 down, I didn't have a single solitary doubt we would win it. So, yeah, momentous occasion. One that is my favourite team memory in my whole life. Is better than the UFA Cup final, you know, because you're doing it in front of you, 40,000 fans, all at your own stadium. The way that it won up was with the very, very last kick of the match. It was an incredible, and of course it fulfilled a fantastic week for me. I was selected for the full England squad, and I was sub at Hampden Park on Saturday, 3 days after the UEFA Cup final. So an unbelievable week with an unbelievable memory. Again, family, friends, and one of my everlasting memories. When I lived in Sunderland, I lived on Gilly Lawn. The local butcher was called Eric Robson, and I used to play football with them as a schoolboy and everything. And I was in the dressing room celebrating with everyone, and the phone rings, and Keith Birkinshaw answers the phone. Hello? Can I speak to Micky Hazard? You know, this is the dressing room. Yeah, but I just need to speak. And the bloody Eric Robson, the local butcher, he's got through to the dressing room sort of 5 minutes after we're coming to the dressing room, we're celebrating. And I'm sitting on the phone in the dressing room talking to the local butcher, Eric Robson, about the game. I mean, and he was saying, Micky, you were unbelievable. He was like ecstatic. He was jumping all over. You know, he was shouting. He was so excited. And that's a Sunderland fan, more excited than me. It was unbelievable. But yeah, incredible memories, incredible occasions. If I could go back into football today, I would always choose a European night over any night.
Fantastic, real Roy the Rover stuff. And again, so northeast, isn't it? The butcher on the other end of the blower. Fantastic stuff.
It was incredible.
Absolutely. I've got to ask you, moving away from Spurs for a time, but how would you describe your time at Chelsea?
I sort of get why the Chelsea fans, I'm not that popular now anymore with Chelsea fans, because Chelsea fans treat me like I was a god. When you talk about my time at Chelsea, you have to remember I come from possibly their biggest rivals, Spurs.
Yes, of course.
And joined Chelsea, and for them to accept me and love me the way they did, they absolutely. I don't think I ever had so much adulation. They sang my name from the first minute to the last minute of every game. It was they absolutely idolized me, and so obviously Spurs was and is my football club, and you can't choose where your heart is.
No.
It just happens and it grows, and Spurs were always my club, and obviously the fact that I joined from the age of sort of 12, had success there, picked for England at 3 levels there. Everything was so wonderful. It's not a detriment on Chelsea that I worship Spurs and that I follow Spurs and support Spurs. And the everything about Spurs is everything about me. Their motto, to Odere Facere, to dare is to do, is my motto. I like to think that's how I played the game. Everything that they stand for, the way they preach the game, and the way I was brought up at the club, playing the game that I love, we sort of fit like an hand to a glove. And it's not detrimental to Chelsea that I chose Tottenham as my club. They are my club. They always will be my club. They'll be my family's club, my children's club. But Chelsea fans will always hold a special place in my heart. Chelsea fans absolutely worship me. They made me so at home. As difficult as it was for me to play for Chelsea, loving Spurs, the fans made me play well, I think, because their love for me was incredible. So, of course, it meant that I had to repay that love. So when I was out on the park, I like to think that, and even, Pat Nevin, for instance, one of the great players that I played with at Chelsea, he did a big article in the Chelsea programme about me not so long ago, talking about what an unbelievable player and what a purist I was. He said he remembered an occasion whereby he beat 3 men, rolled it into me, and I scored against Arsenal at Stamford Bridge. And he said, I didn't celebrate the goal. I ran over to him to celebrate his skill. He said, and it showed what a purist Micky was. He said, but of all the players, if any one player came back today, there's very few players who would be successful or even more successful today. He said, Micky Hazard would be so much more successful today in the way the game's played. And I thought that was a great compliment from a former player. But ultimately, my time was filled with politics. Ken Bates was the chairman. I didn't particularly get on very well with him.
Never been a quiet day there, then.
Yeah. I always felt it was a very... my time, while was amazing to hear the fans singing my name and to deliver the type of football that they wanted to see, I always felt that there was an undercurrent there with me for some reason. That was more political than I was. I was the least political person. I was straight down the middle. I tell it as it is. If I've got something to say to you, I'll say it to you. But I if I didn't agree with what the manager, how we wanted to play, I would have a row with them about it, because that's how I wanted to play. So consequently, it always led to more politics than should have been the case. I wanted the club to play beautiful football. And ironically, over the last 20 years, they've played at times the type of football that I always wanted the club to play. But I will never, ever slag the club off. I will never, ever say a bad word about the fans. The fans were just unbelievable.
Brilliant. You talk about the beautiful game, and of course you were a part of it, and I just love the fact, because I remember, and I said at the top of the interview, and I come on to it now, that I've seen you play live, and I've seen you in a Spurs shirt, Chelsea shirt, but also I saw you in a Swindon shirt, and what I loved about that was that I know it was the time of Ozzy Ardiles, so there's the link, but what a great football side Swindon Town had. And because when they came up, of course, they came up into the Premier League, so everyone got to see that. But before that, the work that went in there, I mean, I was down, at County Ground watching a couple of games, and it was just a great way of playing football, wasn't it?
I have to say that at the end of a long and successful career, I could not have chosen a better club to go and play my football. I knew when I was going there that I was going to be playing the beautiful game, because that's what Ozzy preached. That's what Glenn eventually would preach when he came in. So I knew everything about Swindon would fit with me perfectly. It was a lovely little football club. The fans were great. Everything about the club was a joy to be part of. But the most important part was that being on the pitch, playing in a side that played the way they played. And if that club had had a bit more money, I genuinely believe they would have absolutely survived in the Premier League, no problem, because they played the most wonderful football, and they played it before Glenn arrived. But when you bring Glenn into the frame as well, and he adds himself to the team, suddenly you go from a level that you're at to a new level, because you've got Glenn Hoddle at the back. I mean, as a midfield player who thrived on having the ball and having the quality ball, you knew that no matter where you positioned yourself, Glenn would play the ball at the right pace, the right speed, the right angle. Everything would be perfect, and you just take it in your stride. So you knew you were getting great balls off Glenn, and that would give you every opportunity of being a big success, because he would be on the ball more than anyone at the back, and he would be looking for the most creative player in midfield.
Yeah.
So consequently, it sort of worked. People often said that me and Glenn Hoddle couldn't play together because we were too alike. It was the biggest load of codswallop I've ever heard in my life, because we both understood. When Glenn had the ball, I knew exactly where to be, where to position myself, where to make a run, and he would find me, and vice versa. When I had the ball, I knew exactly where he would be, what angle he would take, and where he would make a run, because we had the same mind. We thought exactly the same about. We had that awareness, that vision, that understanding of the beautiful game. So it was a load of codswallop. Unfortunately, at the time, football was going through this phase of, you need box-to-box players who can tackle, who can work, who can jump and win it in the air. And often the people that are the difference in games, your Hoddles, your Messis, these kind of Iniestas, the Xavis, the Scholesas, these type of players often, particularly in the English game, were overlooked.
Yeah.
Because for the more hard-working, up and down, and it was a sad indictment of the English game. It wasn't a bad reflection of Glenn or other players of that ilk. It was a sad reflection of the English game at that time.
Where it is,
where it was at, because Glenn Hoddle should have had 200 England caps. He was that special a player. And the fact that he only got 56 is absolutely a sad state of affairs for English football, because he was an absolute total genius.
He was indeed, and it was a team full of geniuses, including yourself. Micky, it's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure speaking to you. Wish you and all the family all the very best for Christmas, and we hope your beloved Spurs carry on in the form they're going on. All we ask is that you come back on towards the end of the season and join us again.
You can have me in it. I'll come on anytime you want me. Just let me know. Give me a week's notice and I'm on. Been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Good to hear a Geordie voice too.
Great.
Keep well. Have a great Christmas, and all your listeners have a fantastic Christmas. And let's hope 2021 is an even better year than this year, but with no virus.
Absolutely. Ladies and gents of Hollywood Balls, the one and only Micky Hazard. Thanks, Micky.
See you soon.